She seems like a woman who's like, hey man, I'm gonna hold my man down. I'm gonna do whatever it takes, even if it's against him. Because I mean, again, if you know a little bit more about Gucci, you know he ain't the most, docile nigga out there, right? So he has to be willing to submit to her. And I hope for both of them that's the case, right? And lastly, I'll say this though, because I think the part when it comes to vulnerability that men feel the most concerned about is it being used against us or being thrown back into our face. Right now, I think that might have been a little something that we might have seen too, because obviously they're talking about it openly. But I don't get the impression that maybe that's an issue in their relationship. But in general, part of the reason why men don't speak to their women or women in general is because they fear losing that mantle. See what I did there? Right? The idea that I'm strong and I'm never going to weak and I don't want to be a bitch and I'm supposed to uphold it. So when you find a woman that you can be vulnerable with, that you can be honest with, that can see you at your worst, and she's still going to ride with you, that makes it a lot easier to submit to that woman, right? Because she was with that brother for a very long time and she held it down. So I get it. And I get why men are concerned about the vulnerability. I would just say, listen, man, if you can't feel vulnerable enough to discuss certain things about yourself with your woman, at least get some help. You know what I'm saying? Because listen, your woman may not be qualified, like maybe she's not qualified, right? And so it is important to S&M's point to try to get some help and make sure that you are being cared for by professionals. Right. And I do think that's the case with them as well. I think she's just a strong advocate and also helping to manage the rest of his situation. So kudos to them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say they're like goals or anything because I'm good on that. But I do think it is a good opportunity to talk about schizophrenia in some of those cases that we don't really talk about mental health as much as we should.
The Keyshia Kaoir slander will not be had here because she is the type of sister that guys talk about, man, I want a wife like that, hold me down, thick and thin. Like, she is literally the epitome of like the vows you take. I mean, she's literally seen him at his worst, probably more so than his family and friends. She, between the jail, different other mental health struggles, and just managing him probably in a way that maybe even a mental health professional couldn't reach, and that took a lot of strength, a lot of patience on her part, the strength and patience of a real wife, and she is the kind of woman that, guys will write a song about. And like I said, look at him. I mean, he's doing better, and shout out to them for being open and honest about it, because a lot of people who are not as famous or don't have the resources, they're going through this as well. And it can break a lot of couples, and a lot of couples it probably does really break. So hopefully she's showing as an example that how she can be as a wife, and it could be wife or husband, that they can be there for each other and hold it down. And hopefully, and I'm pretty sure if everything was reversed, Gucci Mane will hold her down as well. So that's a real love story, and they should tell their story and write it. If it turns into a book, go ahead and sell it. Tell your story. Why not? But people need to hear this, and I'm glad they went on the radio and told their story. And I'm sure, lastly, there are cases like we talked about in the interview. She did have to be really firm. She couldn't have a soft hand. She had to be really strict and firm with him to keep him from either harming himself or harming somebody else, and just to manage that situation. So I think to the degree that she was harsh or firm, I don't think it was controlling. I think it was coming from a good place, and she was doing the best she knew how. So shout out to her for that, and I'm glad they're in a good place and moving forward.
He shot people.
Okay, well, that's not good. But
I'm not going to say he's violent, but yeah. I think I want to say I read his book, and he's had episodes when he's had episodes. And sometimes that can, if you're with someone who's dealing with those things, it can be very dangerous is what I'm saying. Yeah. So I do understand the need for her to kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was going to say that as I looked at it, I had all the feels I think everybody had, you know what I mean? As a man who is very protective of his autonomy, you know what I'm saying? I'm listening to the way she's talking about him and what she would not let him do. The thing, I changed his passwords and I ended this. And, and one time we had, like I said, she got his bodyguards and, she had power of attorney over him. So she had him picked up against his will and taken he got him committed. And they wanted to get him one of those things where he could sign himself out. She's like, no, he can't sign himself out. I'm a power of attorney. He got to stay here till he runs the program. And some people might say, man, Wendy Williams, right? But I think that what you have to look at is intent, consent, and then the outcome, right? the intent, everybody, I don't think there's anyone who will say that she has not made his life, his presentation better. Right? From the outside looking in, it looks like he is operating at a higher level than he was before. He is a higher functioning man. He is just a more successful individual, right? So clearly whatever they're doing in their relationship is working. And that's what I want to key in on, right? Is that it would be control. It would be domineering if he hadn't given her that level of control, if he hadn't given her that level of authority. And why did he give it to her? Because he trusted her. Right? He didn't just trust her with his secret, with his mental health struggles. He trusted her to be able to tell him when he was tripping. A lot of people need that in their relationships. You need somebody to tell you when you're tripping. People will probably stay married longer if women would allow the man to tell them when they tripping, right? Or if the man felt he could be vulnerable enough about his weaknesses, whether it was infidelity or whatever it was, and she could work with him and love him through that, and they could work on strategies together, as opposed to now that, oh, I caught you in this thing. I know your weak spot. I know you're failing. Let me exploit it. Let me load it over you. Let me throw it in your face every chance I get. That's not what I got from her. Right. And I was listening closely, right? Because I'm listening to everything and I'm seeing what her reasoning is and all of that. And even she would tell they would involve the friends. And she would say, hey, she would tell his friends, listen, if you start getting crazy texts from him, I know then that means he's going on the episode. Let me know so I can make the changes before he goes out and does something that destroys his whole brand. Right. So she's not just protecting him. She's protecting him publicly, his public face. She's doing what a good partner and spouse is supposed to do. She didn't do a Jada Pinkett and come out here and tell all his business when he wasn't around at some red table. She sat there right next to him and she didn't say something that he was shocked that she said, like we'll look like, oh my God, Uncle Christina. It wasn't like that, right? They were on the same page. And that's beautiful. What I see is partnership working at its finest, where one is weak, the other one builds them up. And they're able to do that. And I wasn't quite sure till I listened to him talk about the verses. Right? Them talk about him going on to do the verses and how initially she was dead set against it. She was like, no, I don't want you to do it. Don't do it. I don't want you to do it. And he was like, no, I'm doing the verses. I want to do it. I'm doing it. So the man still has his agency. He still has the ability to do the things that he decides that he wants to do. What she is there for is to deal with him when he's not himself, because he has found somebody that even when he is not himself, she has touched something in him that he can trust. So even when he's got these other voices in his head, she can speak to him, and her voice, her person is somebody that's shown that he can trust her. And so she can talk him down. She can tell, and when he talking bad, she go, look, I ain't scared of you, bro. I ain't scared of you. That's what she said to him. He get boisterous, whatever. She go toe to toe. So, hey, I ain't scared of you. Go and sit over there. You're wilding right now. And he can hear that to some degree, to a good enough degree for them to move forward. So I guess my point here is this. Yes, there's a danger. There's always a danger of showing your vulnerability, of showing your back to an enemy so they can stab it. It is even more dangerous when you realize you might be sleeping with the enemy, right? But if you're not one of those people, and I pray that you're not, and I pray most people aren't, then maybe you're sleeping with your friend, your best friend. And maybe that is somebody, and no, they're not a therapist, right? And maybe they're not trained, but everybody can educate themselves and read up as to how to help their person. When in the school system, when they're trying to diagnose a child, they often involve the family. And when they're trying to help the child in a program, or they set up programs for the children to help them grow and mature and get better, you have to involve the family. It's a holistic kind of thing that you're dealing with. It's not just in one place. It doesn't just happen in the therapist's office. There are things that have to happen when you're home. I see her doing that. So I see this as a shining example of how couples can get it right, how they can make each other better when they're willing to not get stuck in their gender roles and I'm the boss, and everything I say is always right, and this and this and that. And they're willing to say, listen, I've got some areas where I need some help. And can I trust you to help me? And she shows up and says that she can, or he shows up and says that they can. And that's a great thing. I'm not saying that more couples should be doing, at home, pop-up therapist or whatever, but you're the first person. You're the person they see the most often. You're the person most in the place to help them, and most in the place to know when they're not themselves. So, I'm a very big fan of what she's doing. I'm a very big fan of the couple. No, it's not couple goals. I don't want their struggles. I don't want nothing they got. But I do love their partnership. I applaud it. And if there is a danger and vulnerability, it is exacerbated by the danger of choosing and trusting the wrong person. I think that's where the focus should be. Not in how much you share, but who you choose to share it with and who you choose to share your life with.